They say schools are places of learning, but some lessons are written in blood. Every hallway has its echoes, laughter, footsteps, whispers. But what if those whispers never belonged to the living? Tonight, we're unlocking the doors of institutions that never truly closed. These are real stories from guards, teachers, and students who swore they'd never return, but some claim their shadows still wander those halls. So, dim your lights. Imagine the faint buzz of old fluorescent bulbs, the smell of chalk and dust, and that sudden chill crawling down your spine as you realize you're not alone in the classroom anymore. Welcome to Veil of Dread Horror Stories, where the innocent walls of schools hide truths so horrifying they'll make you rethink your childhood memories. Subscribe now and step into the darkness beyond the final bell. Story 1. The Night Janitor's Secret. The school was empty, except for the hum of the ancient boiler and the steady squeak of a mop bucket's wheels echoing down the corridor. It was 11:47 p.m. when Mark Ellison, the night janitor at Greenridge High, began his shift, the same shift he'd been doing for nearly 12 years. He liked the quiet. He liked when the students were gone, the laughter silenced, the chaos replaced by solitude. But lately, something about the quiet had changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was watchful. At first, it was small things. A door that wouldn't stay locked. A chair moved from one desk to another. Footsteps echoing long after he'd stopped moving. He told himself it was fatigue. 12-hour nights will do that to you. But deep down, Mark knew something wasn't right in that school, especially not after the accident. 3 months ago, a senior student, Clara Hayes, was found dead in the science lab. The official report said it was a gas leak, a tragic malfunction. But Mark had been there that night. He was the one who found her. And he remembered the look on her face. Not fear, but shock, as if she'd seen something that shouldn't exist. The humming locker Mark started his rounds as usual. He moved through the empty halls, keys jangling, flashlight beams slicing through the dark. When he reached the east wing, the one near the old science lab, he heard it again. A low humming sound, metallic, vibrating from one of the lockers. He frowned. "Not again," he muttered, tapping the locker door. The humming stopped. He stood there for a second, waiting. Then, thud. Something hit the inside. He froze. "Hello?" he whispered, his voice shaky. No answer. He slowly turned the lock, the metal creaking as it opened. Inside was nothing, just an empty space. But the back wall of the locker was wet, covered in condensation. Mark touched it. The metal was ice cold. He shined his flashlight, and that's when he saw it. Words scratched into the back panel. "She never left." His throat tightened. He slammed the locker shut and stepped back. The camera feed Mark hurried down to the security office to shake it off. Maybe it was some leftover prank. Kids sneaking in, leaving creepy notes. He'd seen weirder. He sat down, grabbed his coffee, and glanced at the monitor screens. The school had 12 cameras, one in each major hallway. 11 showed static hallways, completely empty. But on the 12th, the one near the east wing, there was movement. He leaned closer. Someone, a girl, was standing there. Long hair, wearing a uniform. At first he thought it was a recording, but the timestamp read, "Live." "Who the hell is that?" he muttered. He grabbed his flashlight and hurried toward the east corridor. When he got there, it was empty. He checked every door, every classroom. Nothing. But when he returned to the security office, the girl was still on the camera, standing in the exact same spot he'd just been in, and this time she was looking directly into the lens, the basement door. By 2:30 a.m., Mark was sweating, his nerves shredded. He told himself to just finish his shift and get out. But before leaving, he wanted to check one last thing. The basement. The basement of Greenridge wasn't part of the main layout anymore. It had been sealed off years ago after a fire in the old maintenance area. Only Mark had the key. He went down the steps, each creak echoing like a scream. The air grew colder, thicker. The smell of mold and rust filled his nose. At the bottom was a heavy metal door, and behind it a space he rarely entered. As he turned the handle, his flashlight flickered. He smacked it once, twice. It steadied. The light revealed pipes, old chairs, and boxes covered in dust. But then, in the far corner, he saw a shape. A figure crouched low, hair covering its face. "Hey!" he shouted, his voice trembling. "Who's there?" The figure didn't move. He stepped closer. It looked like a girl, wearing an old-school uniform, and when she finally lifted her head, Mark stumbled backward. It was Clara Hayes. Her skin was gray, lips pale, eyes wide open but glassy, unblinking. She whispered something, a sound like air escaping a vent, but it formed words. "You shouldn't be here." Mark turned to run, but the door had shut behind him. He threw his shoulder into it, over and over, until it burst open. He sprinted upstairs, gasping for air, dropping his flashlight in the process. When he finally looked back, the light in the basement was still on, and Clara was standing at the foot of the stairs. The next morning, when the morning staff arrived, they found the security office empty. Mark's car was still in the parking lot. His radio was on the desk. The monitors showed static, all except one, camera 12. There, in the dimly lit hallway, a figure was mopping the floor, a janitor. But when the principal checked the staff list, no one had worked that shift, not since Mark Ellison. He'd never been seen again. And sometimes, when the new cleaners work late, they say they still hear his mop bucket squeaking down the corridor, and a low voice humming under the flicker of the lights. She never left. Story 2. The Classroom That Reappeared. Some schools keep secrets buried under history, but Ravenshade Academy didn't just have a dark past. It had a missing piece. In 1976, room 313 was permanently sealed after a violent incident involving a student and a teacher. The entire wing was blocked off. Blueprints were redrawn, and the number 3113 was erased from every record. For decades, students whispered about it, a cursed classroom that only appeared on stormy nights. But for one student, that rumor became horrifyingly real. The return of room 313. Ella Montgomery was a senior at Ravenshade. She wasn't the type to believe in ghost stories. Straight A student, science club president, rational, logical. So when her friends dared her to sneak into the old West Wing one night, she laughed and said, "Sure, maybe I'll find your ghost and give it extra homework." It was supposed to be a joke. The West Wing had been shut down for years, no electricity, no maintenance. But the night she went, a thunderstorm rolled in. Rain battered the windows, wind howled through the cracks. Her flashlight cut through the dark as she made her way down the dusty hallway. Every step echoed, too loud. Every door she passed had a faded number, 309, 310, 311. And then she froze. The next door, freshly painted, the number clear and sharp. 313. Her breath hitched. "Okay, who's messing with me?" she whispered. She tried the handle. It turned easily. Inside, the room was immaculate, desks polished, chalkboard clean. A faint smell of perfume lingered, mixed with something metallic. She stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind her. The class in session. Ella spun around, flashlight shaking in her hand. But the room was suddenly different. The windows weren't broken anymore. The lights were on, and the desks were full. Students sat in neat rows, faces pale and motionless. They all wore old-style uniforms, 1970s style. At the front stood a teacher, a woman with perfectly combed hair and a ruler in her hand. "Late again, Miss Montgomery?" the teacher said softly. Ella's blood ran cold. "How do you know my name?" she stammered. The teacher smiled, a stretched, unnatural curve. "Take your seat. The lesson has already begun." The sound of chalk scraping filled the air. The teacher wrote across the board, "Lesson 1. Repeat what you see." Ella's flashlight flickered. The writing on the board changed. Now it said, "You shouldn't be here." The teacher turned, eyes black as ink, and all the students turned their heads in perfect unison to stare at Ella. The broadcast. When Ella's friends realized she hadn't returned, they called the security office. Officer Dan Mercer, the night guard, checked the cameras. Nothing unusual, except for one feed. Camera 9, the West Wing. The feed had been offline for years, but tonight it was glowing faint green. He tapped the screen, and there she was. Ella, sitting in a classroom. Around her, other students, unmoving. He called her name through the speaker, but she didn't react. Then the camera flickered. The room was empty again, just dust and broken desks. Dan grabbed his keys and ran to the West Wing. When he got there, it was pitch dark, no sign of anyone. But lying on the floor, right outside a blank section of wall, was Ella's flashlight, still on, pointing at a crack in the wall, where faintly, beneath the plaster, the outline of a door could still be seen. And on that plaster, written in chalk, was one sentence: "Class dismissed." The aftermath. The next morning, police arrived. No sign of Ella, no sign of any room 313. Maintenance workers swore that part of the hallway had been bricked up for decades. But when they pulled away a section of wall, there was a door. It opened easily. Inside, dust, old furniture, and an ancient chalkboard. On it was a date, April 19th, 1976. And below it, scrawled in fresh white chalk, were the words, "Welcome back, Ella Montgomery." The footage. 2 weeks later, the security department reviewed footage from the night Ella disappeared. Every camera angle was normal, except one. At exactly 11:31 p.m., camera 9, the one in the sealed hallway, flickered on for exactly 12 seconds. It showed Ella, standing in the middle of a lit classroom, turning toward the lens, with tears streaming down her face. Behind her, the class sat motionless. The teacher's face was blurred, but her voice could be heard faintly through the static. "Repeat. After me. You shouldn't be here." Then the screen went black. Years later, Ravenshade Academy still operates today. Students say if you stay late during a thunderstorm, the old hallway smells faintly of chalk dust and perfume. And if you count the classroom numbers carefully, you'll find that one night out of every year, there's a door that shouldn't exist. Room 313. And if you're foolish enough to open it, you'll hear a voice say, "Take your seat." Story 3. The Girl in the Locker Room Mirror. High schools are full of legends, but the one that haunted Evercrest Girls Academy wasn't just a story whispered during sleepovers. It was a warning. They said that if you looked into the old locker room mirror after midnight, you'd see her, Emily Rose, the girl who vanished on graduation night. Some said she ran away. Others said she never left. But those who claimed to see her reflection swore she wasn't human anymore. The dare Maya Trent, a junior, wasn't the type to believe in ghost stories. She was fearless, sarcastic, and curious. The kind of girl who'd laugh in the face of danger just to prove she could. So, when her friends dared her to test the mirror ritual one Friday night, she agreed immediately. Midnight. Locker room. Easy, she said, flashing her phone light. What's the worst that could happen? The rules were simple. Go into the old locker room after midnight, turn off all the lights, look into the cracked mirror and say, "Emily Rose, come home," 3 times. If she appeared, you had to keep eye contact until she disappeared. It sounded ridiculous until it wasn't. The first glimpse. The clock struck 12:03 a.m. when Maya pushed open the heavy door to the locker room. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of chlorine from the nearby pool. Her phone flashlight flickered as if protesting the darkness. Rows of lockers lined the walls, and at the far end stood the mirror, large, cracked, and spotted with age. She approached slowly, her footsteps echoing unnaturally. Her reflection stared back, warped by the cracks. She smirked, rolled her eyes, and whispered, "Emily Rose, come home." Nothing. "Emily Rose, come home." Still nothing, just her own nervous grin staring back. Then she said it one last time. "Emily Rose, come home." Click. Her phone light went out. The silence was suffocating. Then, behind her reflection, a faint shape began to form, like fog, curling up from the floor. Maya froze. Okay, that's not funny, guys. But no one was there. She took a shaky step closer. The fog thickened, taking the shape of a girl. Long hair, pale dress, head tilted. Then the reflection smiled back, even though Maya hadn't moved. The reflection's smile. Maya stumbled backward, heart pounding. The reflection didn't mimic her movement. It stayed still, grinning wider. And then it spoke. A whisper, distorted, like glass cracking underwater. "I'm still here." The locker doors around her rattled violently. One burst open with a deafening clang. Her phone light flickered back on for a second, enough to show something carved into the metal inside the locker. Emily Rose, class of 1998. Maya turned to run, but her reflection didn't. It reached out, instead, its hand pressing against the inside of the glass, distorting it like liquid. For a brief second, Maya saw her own face, pale, distorted, screaming silently inside the mirror. The teacher. When Maya didn't return home, her friends panicked. They told the vice principal, Mrs. Lang, who'd been teaching there for 30 years. When Mrs. Lang heard which mirror they were talking about, her face drained of color. She grabbed her flashlight and stormed toward the old locker room. When she entered, the air was freezing. Every locker door hung open. "Maya," she called, voice trembling. No answer. The mirror stood there, cracked and gleaming faintly. As she shined her light, something caught her eye. Faint fingerprints on the inside of the glass, and next to them, a smudge shaped like a hand pressed flat against it. She wiped it, and for a split second, saw Maya's face staring back at her, mouth open in a silent scream. Mrs. Lang screamed and stumbled backward. The light flickered. When it came back on, the mirror showed only her own reflection. Again. The investigation. The police came the next morning. They found no trace of Maya. Her phone was discovered in a locker, the screen shattered, still recording a video. When they recovered the footage, it showed her standing in front of the mirror, whispering the words. The camera flickered, then captured something impossible. Behind her reflection, a girl appeared, soaked, pale, eyes black, like ink. Maya gasped, turned, and the footage ended with a deafening scream. No one could explain the fingerprints on the inside of the glass. The mirror was removed from the wall, wrapped in sheets, and locked away in the school basement. But even that didn't end it. The return years passed. The locker room was renovated. New mirrors, new paint, new students who'd never heard of Emily Rose or Maya Trent. But one night, a janitor doing rounds after hours heard a faint tapping sound. Metal against glass. He followed the noise to the new locker room, and there, in the reflection, he saw two girls standing behind him, one smiling, one crying. When he turned, no one was there. He quit the next day. The truth behind the legend. According to old records, Emily Rose wasn't just a student. She was the daughter of a teacher. She'd drowned in the school's pool after hours. They said she was found the next morning with her hand pressed against the mirror in the locker room, as if she'd been trying to climb through. The mirror was never replaced after that, just patched, cleaned, and left there, until Maya's dare reopened it. Now students say that on rainy nights, if you walk past the locker room, you can hear a faint tapping, and if you glance into the mirror, even for a second, you might see a pale hand pressing against the glass from the other side. Emily Rose, come home. They whisper her name still, but the question is, what if she already did?